Each of you comes here today hopeful, wanting in on the game.
You know that old saying, if these walls could talk.
Pick me, choose me, love me.
I have 5 rules, memorize them.
Join us as Grey's Anatomy becomes the longest-running primetime medical show on television.
Will you marry me?
Because after 332 episodes,
people love us. That's cause to celebrate.
we still have so much more to say.
Hey guys, so going forward, I was thinking just to review the episode and the trailer in the same video. The trailer will always play before both reviews, and I'll put a time link in the video description to when the trailer review wants to start. Just for the sake of production, it's so much easier to make one video as opposed to 2, and that way you guys get both discussions right away. So let's talk about I Want a New Drug, which was a very powerful episode. I really loved it. Season 15 has been extremely powerful, and I've really liked this season so far. In fact, I think it might be one of my favorite seasons of Grey's Anatomy as a whole, but we need to see how it ends in order for that feeling to truly stick. So what's interesting to me about this episode is Meredith was barely in it, and this is Grey's Anatomy, but she was barely a part of the big A storyline. There was really only 2 storylines, and the main opioid epidemic storyline was, you know, I don't want to say littered, but had several other little subplots going along with it, like Nico and Glasses and Maggie and Jackson and stuff like that. Like then Alex and Joe were sprinkled throughout the opioid crisis, but like the people who were running the opioid storyline was Teddy, Owen, and Amelia, and I really did enjoy all of the characters that contributed to the opioid part of the storyline. But let's just talk about Meredith, because her part was relatively minute. Granted, in the video, or the episode description, which we talked about in the trailer review for this episode, it had said that she had broken a hospital record, and all of us were wondering, what could this record be? And it turned out it was the longest surgery on the hospital record, which she broke twice in the same episode, which I thought was awesome. But to me, I thought, this is Grey's Anatomy. Grey needs to be a part of the big storyline going on. I want to see her reactions to this, because, you know, the person really leading the charge of the opioid crisis was Amelia, who was her sister, and I really felt that Amelia and Meredith needed to have time together. They've had very little interaction this season, which I think is unfortunate, just because I really do like the dynamic that Katerina Scorsone and Ellen Pompeo do have. Kelly McKeary and Ellen Pompeo interact a lot more than Katerina Scorsone and Ellen Pompeo. So that's really all that happened with Meredith. She broke the record. Boki, who is the scrub nurse from season 1, talked. She said Wonder Woman for the first time, because Meredith was talking about, you know, like a new title she should take on for getting the or breaking the record. I like that. Honestly, it added lightness and a breath of fresh air to a very dark, very powerful storyline that's going on, talking about you know, addiction and homelessness and whatnot. And overall, I got it. I got why the storyline was there, because, as I said, it adds an element of lightness and not so much humor. There was humor in there, but like it wasn't needed to be funny to lighten that mood. It just made the opioid crisis not as dark as it needed to be, because it was very intense given how sick Brittany Betty got. So overall, Meredith's storyline was good, but it was the weaker of the 2. Her and DeLuca's relationship got developed a little bit as well, which I thought was really well done. Particularly at the end, where, you know, she falls asleep because she had been operating for over 27 hours, and then, you know, towards the end of the episode, he picks her up and puts her into a room and puts a blanket on her and kisses her. I thought that was really cute. So Meredith's storyline, it's really discussed because it's so small. So then the overall opioid epidemic. So there's you know, the park in Seattle, and I guess drugs are just being sold and used, which is horrible. And you know, Betty and her boyfriend Linus get their hands on some drugs. They're addicts, and they go to the hospital. Betty doesn't want to be at the hospital because, you know, she doesn't want to run into Amelia and Derek. And then in the hospital, she goes into the clinic. She's talking to Link, and she gets very sick, and her heart essentially stops, and which leaves Teddy to save her. So Teddy and Richard go to save her life, and Maggie was going to operate on Betty, but Teddy told Maggie, you cannot do this, because if this girl dies, you need to be there for Amelia, which I thought was absolutely just beautifully delivered, and just it shows how well, even though Teddy's only been there for a little bit, it shows how much she gets that Amelia and Maggie and Meredith are a close-knit family. I really did like that. And then at the end of the episode, Brittany did live, which I really liked as well. I figured she would live, but we're going to talk a little bit more about Brittany in a second as I talk about Owen and Brittany. And Amelia was so happy. She gave Teddy this great hug, and I really liked that. But now, because of Teddy saving Brittany, this won't cause, more or less, I imagine, any relapse for Amelia. People have been thinking if Owen had chose Teddy, if Brittany had died, that it would essentially be such a gigantic shock to Amelia's system, it would cause her to go back into doing drugs again. And if you haven't seen Private Practice, that happens to Amelia's character. She goes back to drugs, and there's a whole arc where Addison, because Addison leaves Grey's Anatomy at the end of season 3, and she is the main character of Private Practice. You know, she does make scattered appearances in seasons 4 through 8 of Grey's, but you know, that's that essentially Private Practice is where Amelia is introduced. Addison is the one dealing with Amelia, especially when Amelia goes back to being back to drugs. And I think to bring Kate Walsh back, to have Meredith deal with Amelia's addiction, to have Maggie deal with the addiction, to have Owen deal with it, I think that would be a really powerful couple of scenes and a couple of episodes and whatnot. But that obviously isn't going to happen. So essentially the Brittany, Leo, Betty storyline is wrapped up, which it started in season 14 and it's over now. And it's a little upsetting because Owen has lost Leo. So you know, the majority of Amelia's storyline was just pretty much praying that Betty wouldn't die. And she didn't. But poor Owen has to lose Leo. And I thought there would have been a whole custody battle. They did a custody battle with Sophia and, you know, when it was Arizona versus Cali, which made sense because they were her, you know, her legal guardians. But the way that Betty put Leo into the system would cause such a interesting legal argument that I could see the Grey's Anatomy writers having a field day with this plot point in order to see who has a true custody of Leo. And I guess the writers didn't want to deal with that. And now Leo goes back to his parents. So Betty is home and her parents more or less will be the legal guardians of Leo. And the scene where Owen had to give Leo up was probably one of the most heartbreaking scenes I've ever seen Kevin McKidd do. There's a couple scenes where he gets sad about Christina earlier in the show, but I never felt that impact for him. I really liked in the week before where he was dealing with the gunfire with the Scottish bagpipers. I really like that. I think they're really honing in on Kevin McKidd's ability to be massively dramatic when he needs to be dramatic. And I do appreciate that. So when Owen had to give away Leo, I was like, oh my God, this poor guy. He loves this kid. All he wants to do is have this kid, and he can't do that. So I felt horrible for Owen there. And I really like Teddy's involvement with both characters. But in the end, Owen is still getting his kid. He's still going to get a daughter out of this whole situation. So I think he'll recover. He'll eventually get over the loss of Leo. It's just what's happening right now. But he'll grieve it and he'll move on. Bailey was there. She was kind of scattered throughout the episode. But the persons who were really scattered but very much involved were Alex and Joe. So Alex and Joe had a really interesting not so much arc or even storyline because their storyline was so minute, but the way they just were involved with the opioid crisis I really liked. So there was a mother who was at the park. She was getting drugs, and you know I could tell right away she was getting drugs because of the way Joe was talking about her vitals and whatnot. And then she lost her son. And then how Alex reacted to how the mother shouldn't be near the baby, which I actually agree with Alex's perspective on that, and how Joe reacted I thought was really intense. So I really liked what was going on with Alex and Joe, and then what was going on with Jackson. And in the episode description for this episode, and it said that Jackson was going to try to take Maggie camping, and that came back at the end. There was a little bit of humor with Maggie and Jackson towards the beginning of the episode with the camping trip, but that didn't happen. I kind of wish that they got to go camping just to see Maggie, who's very much into the finer things of life. Would have been hilarious because Jackson had talked about going in an outhouse essentially, So Jackson was dealing with the homeless man and doing a procedure on his feet and whatnot. And then at the end of the episode, that homeless man was given a bunch of stuff that Jackson had in the back of his car for camping. And he was like, you had all this in your trunk. And it was just a very powerful line. So everything that happened in this episode was extremely powerful. From the cute moment of DeLuca kissing Meredith that was light and touching, to Amelia, being happy over the fact that Brittany isn't dead, to having Owen lose his child. It was great. And I can't wait to see episode 15. So let's talk about episode 15, speaking of. So the trailer is horrible. It is probably one of the worst trailers I've ever seen. And this is a very, very big episode. Grey's Anatomy has now surpassed ER as the longest running medical drama on television, which is amazing. And to have a trailer only show the backgrounds of the hospital, and granted, it did have important quotes that are very vital to Grey's Anatomy history, but to not give us even a clip show trailer, I thought was a slap in the face to fans. And this episode is going to be airing on Thursday, and that's in about, today's Saturday, so that's 5 days from today. And they haven't done any other major form of promotion. ABC Marketing is probably one of the worst marketing departments I've ever seen. And they're owned by Disney, and it drives me insane. Again, the trailer did have the great quotes, like pick me, choose me, love me. I love that episode. I think that's one of the best episodes. And when I started to watch Grey's Anatomy for the first time, I thought season 1 was kind of eh. But then when Meredith said that line to Derek, I instantly texted my sister who told me to watch Grey's. And I was like, that scene was amazing. And it made me a Grey's fan. So I get why that's there. But to not even show us a little bit of what's going to be happening in that episode, or to show us things from prior episodes that are leading up to why this show is so impactful, I don't think is good marketing. However, we did get promotional pictures, which you can obviously see on the sides. And I do like the promo pics. I think they're really well constructed. We have Helen Karev returning. We have a nice picture of Mariluka. And then we have a fantastic picture of Owen and Amelia looking at Betty and Karasik. Because there's no way, because Owen hasn't had a time to really process, at least in front of us, Teddy dealing with Karasik. Because again, if Teddy makes her relationship with Karasik long-term, marriage, etc., he's going to be in Owen's life for a long time, and I don't think Owen is going to like Karasik. But I do like the pictures quite a bit for this episode. The Mariluka one I really just love a lot because I just totally ship it. But the Owen, Amelia, Teddy, Karasik storyline I think is probably the most fun at the moment, because now Mariluka is essentially done. Not so much done, but like the will they won't they is done. So now they're together. So now it's like, how are they going to develop their relationship? And I think it will develop quite nicely. And to see Helen Karev return is always nice, but Joe and Alex need time to shine. So let's just briefly read the episode description for We Didn't Start the Fire. It says, when Jackson throws a party to celebrate Captain's surgery and those who work to save her, literally nothing goes as planned. So that means there's more than likely comedy, and given just the looks of the characters' faces, it looks like this episode is going to be quite lighter than the previous 2 or 3, which I think is quite helpful. And then meanwhile, it says Helen pays Alex and Joe a surprise visit. I think that's interesting that Helen is coming to visit them in Seattle, because they had talked when she was added to the show that she can't break away from her routine. So I'm curious what's going to bring her to Seattle. But I did like Helen Karev. I thought she was a really nice addition, and to show more of Alex's backstory. Hopefully she'll get more than one episode. Speaking of older characters or other characters that came to the show, so Jennifer Grey, it was announced that she was going to be in a secret role, and we saw her in the secret role. She was Betty, Brittany's mother, and I was so bummed out that that was the role she was cast in, because it really seemed to be such a thankless role. Had she have been more heavily connected to the Doctor, or even in like maybe, I would say 5-6 episodes, I think the role would have been better. But the Leo storyline is wrapped up, so like the way they hyped it up, I thought was just very odd. I wasn't a fan of that. But overall, I love the promo pics for We Didn't Start a Fire. I just think that it's going to be a lighter episode, and I can't wait to see the interactions between Mariluka, just because I'm curious how the relationship is going to blossom, and then how Owen is going to be dealing with Teddy and Karasik. It's just going to be great. Teddy is now 30 weeks pregnant, as revealed in episode 14 of the show. So what could be happening with that? Her baby's going to be coming soon. So I'm curious, will there be complications with the delivery? There's been rumors that my God, that Sada Ramirez might be returning as Callie. Granted, Callie isn't a pediatric surgeon or a fetal surgeon or an OB, but I'm curious if she might come back to the show. Could Arizona be returning again? Kate Walsh had said she kind of wants to step away from Grace, but the character of Addison is in Seattle, so it would be kind of nice. Maybe Arizona. So there's a lot to come out of the next couple episodes. So we have 10 more. If you include episode 15, we still have 11. We have 10 more episodes to watch of Grey's Anatomy before the show's over, and I'm very excited to watch and discuss them all. So anyway, thank you for listening to my thoughts on the episode 14 and my review of the trailer. I thought the trailer was just awful. I think Grey's Anatomy marketing I think ABC marketing needs to change radically. So share your thoughts about both in the comments below, and let me know if you prefer a video that includes both the trailer and the episode, or if you want separate content going forward. I will work on both. So hey guys, thanks for watching, and we'll talk real soon. Bye.